Buenas noches a todos, esto es CAOS Podcast, hoy 3 de diciembre, ya con un poquito de frío.
Poquito la gran patria.
Vos, de verdad, no solo tus primos, los chairos, nos andan reventando porque andas ahí porque dice que back, ¿cómo es esa mierda? Back Mountain y todo eso, y pues con estas...
Sí, mira, vengo de country boy.
Cornfed boy.
Cornfed boy.
Bueno, jóvenes, interesante semana. Cosas que están viéndose con el Congreso, el presupuesto, ese aumento de salario que se dieron los estimados diputados que estaba preplaneado, que no se vengan con pajas que salió de la nada y espontáneamente, estaba bien preplaneadito, escondido en un bolsón del renglón 900, pero eso ya saldrá después a luz cuando se hagan las diligencias necesarias. Jóvenes, hoy tenemos un programa bastante diferente. Es nuestro segundo invitado de Estados Unidos, ¿verdad? Aparte de Sarah.
Bueno, pero ahí no estaba yo. No había tomado posesión del podcast.
Del mando todavía no. Bueno,
hoy tenemos un caos transnacional.
Internacional, caballo.
No trans, porque lo que se va a tocar es de muchos países.
No nos ayudas utilizando la palabra trans.
Es a propósito.
Es a propósito. Bueno, jóvenes, hoy con nosotros el periodista investigativo, documentarista, experto en Bitcoin de Estados Unidos, nuestro amigo Ryan Matta. Ryan, welcome. And before you say anything, jóvenes, por favor, ponen sus captions en español, sus subtítulos, especial para los que se grabaron de la Landívar y le regalaron los títulos y no saben inglés. Entonces, para que puedan entender. Ryan, welcome to Guatemala.
Thanks for having me. Honored to be here.
It's great having you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, man. So tell us about a little bit, who is Ryan Matta?
I'm a documentary filmmaker, Bitcoin maximalist, traveling around the world trying to help save God's children. I've been on this mission to save these rescued migrant children for about the last 2 years, and that's how we ended up here today.
Awesome. So did you go to school for journalism? How did you become a journalist and a filmmaker?
Journalism was just by happen chance. I started in the crypto space, and when you're talking about blockchain technology, everything is on chain. Every transaction, every wallet, every trade you make, you can trace it all. So there was a bunch of scammers in the crypto space. So I started doing investigations into the blockchain because it was very cut and dry. They put out a YouTube video telling you to buy coin A. During that video, I'm tracking their wallet, and their wallet's selling that coin. So price is skyrocketing up. Everybody in their audience is buying this coin, and I'm watching their wallet take profits and sell. So they're lying to you, right? Complete scam. They're ripping you off. They're telling you that this is a good investment. It's not. It's a scam. They're making a ton of money, and they're dumping it on you. So that led into the FTX collapse with Sam Bankman-Fried and our government. And that,
really? You were into that?
Yeah, I made a lot of money shorting that, shorting FTX because it was so obvious that it was going to collapse, and it was a scam, and it was a fraud. Yeah. And when it happened, anybody that was into crypto knew. So we had 2 weeks, and we made a ton of money shorting FTX to zero. And all my subscribers knew we didn't lose any money. And I watched the news and the media portray it like this came out of nowhere, and nobody could have seen it coming, and blah, 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 blah. And everybody lost all their money, and they got all. And I didn't know one investor that lost money. I knew a bunch of big CEOs and people like Tom Brady and celebrities in America and Kevin O'Leary that lost a bunch of money. But as far as the little guy, I knew very little.
Dumb people lost money.
Yeah, very few. But it was the rich, it was the elites. It was all a scam. FTX was...
dumb elites that lost their money.
Yeah, yep.
And how come you got into immigration and child trafficking and all of that?
You start following the money, right? You start wondering why Sam Bankman-Fried and why the media is protecting this kid and they're calling him just a kid. And you start going down those rabbit holes. And then I ended up watching a YouTube video one day. I was like, I'm just looking at Trump. I want to see what Trump's best speech is. And I went to watch that video, and I had to watch an ad of Hillary Clinton. I couldn't skip it. It was a 60-second ad of Hillary Clinton telling me what a bad guy Trump was and what a loser he was and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm trying to hear about the president of the United States and learn about this guy. And I'm forced to watch this ad by Hillary Clinton. And then it kind of just dawned on me.
In the social media?
Mm-hmm. On YouTube, yeah.
Okay. So in your search, you type Donald Trump, and it came an ad, a video of Hillary Clinton talking against Trump.
Yeah, I searched the Donald Trump's greatest speech. And it came up the World Economic Forum 2020. If nobody's watched that speech, it's one of his best of all time. And I went to click on that. And then when you click a video on YouTube, sometimes they force you to watch an ad before you can watch that video. Yeah. So I was forced to watch that ad of Hillary.
An ad of Hillary Clinton?
Yes.
Wow.
So that tells you about interference, right? And that's something...
Controlling the narrative and everything.
That's a lot we've seen here about interference, and it's something that needs to be investigated as well. But anyway, so going back to saving God's children, what was the first thing that really scared you about this industry?
You know,
or shocked you? What was the first thing that shocked you when you started investigating it?
That we had over 2,000 kidnapped children locked in a Walmart. It was unbelievable. I had a whistleblower come forward on my buddy Kyle Serafin's show. I was producing Kyle Serafin's show. He's an FBI whistleblower, came forward. So when it comes to interrogating and vetting a source, this gentleman named Carlos came on to Kyle's show. And Kyle's really good at interrogating. He has a really good read on people. So when Kyle's like, yeah, I think he's legit, you know, I took his word for it. So I brought Carlos back on my show for like 3 hours. I spent 3 hours asking this guy question after question after question. And at the end of it, you know, it sounds so unbelievable when I tell you that there's children right now, kidnapped children from Guatemala in buildings in America. I can take you to that door right now. And if we had the authority to kick that door in, we would be saving and rescuing these Guatemala children. We'll get into the fact that they're going to be delivered to a buyer here in America in a minute. But Carlos tells me that he broke this story on Fox News like 6 months before. And
what year was that?
This would have been this was December of 2022.
Okay.
So right after.
Not that far away.
Yeah, not that far. It was right after kind of like Elon had bought Twitter, right? It was right around that time frame. And at the end of our interview, he tells me that he broke the story on Fox News. He broke it with another couple conservative journalist outlets. But he's offered everybody to come down, and nobody wanted to come down. I'm like, come down? What do you mean? He goes, I can take you up to these buildings where these kidnapped children are. And I'm thinking like, okay. I remember calling my boss, and I'm like, hey, I think I got this story. Are you willing to cover my trip? Because Kyle's like, why are you even going down there? You're not going to make an impact. You're not going to do anything.
Where were you working at the time?
I was in Detroit, and this was in Texas.
Okay.
So I called my boss at LFA TV, and I said, hey, will you cover the trip, the cost? I don't want reimbursement for anything. We just cover the cost of my hotel and my rental car and my stay there. And he said, well, what's the story? And I said, well, there's a bunch of kidnapped children inside of a Walmart. And there's a couple of them there.
It's a closed Walmart.
Yes.
Not an empty Walmart.
Yes, empty Walmart. So we wonder why the Democrats let these hoodlums rob all these Walmarts and ransack these Walmarts. Because the building itself is like 6 times more valuable than, yeah. So.
Wait. Isn't that company getting special treatment for foreign investments?
Walmart?
Yeah.
Where? Here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Isn't it one of those?
Our president went to
that development program that they're going to get loans from the U.S. to actually do development here. Development, what they are a store.
It's bizarre, right? And that's what I thought too. I was like, it just didn't make sense. And I went down there, and within 15 minutes of landing at that airport, he took me to 5 different facilities. The Walmart holds 12,000. Capacity is 12,000 boys between the ages of 13 and 17. At the time I filmed it, it was 2,000. They were over capacity. It was packed to the max. Every single parking lot, you've been to a Walmart in America, right? The parking lots are ginormous. They're never filled. Even on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, like the most busiest day of the year.
Black Friday, they're never full.
Never. Every single spot in that entire parking lot, plus overflow parking lot that they had built in the back, every single spot was full with a car. And those are the cars of the employees that are working there to manage just that amount of kids that are inside that facility. Then down the street, there's another facility that holds female children between the ages of 0 and 12. They have a warehouse that's probably twice the size of this house. It's cribs as far as the eye could see, just baby after baby after baby laying in these cribs. From there, then we went to another one that held girls between the ages of 13 and 17, another one that held boys between the ages of 0 and 12, and then the weird ones are the mixed, where you have teenage boys and girls, and they're always the smaller facilities. They're never the large-scale facilities. And you're mixing horny teenage children, 80% of which who have been raped and assaulted on their way to America, and you're putting them into a facility together with minimal supervision.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. You tell me.
You saw everything of this, you're telling us.
Child harvesting?
No, I don't think it's child harvesting.
It's pornography.
I would say that in a facility like that, you could stage a camera anywhere and you don't have to force the kids to have sex to film child porn. You just hit a camera and you just let the kids be kids.
Yep.
And then there's another one.
You saw all of this?
Yeah, like the kids having sex inside the facilities?
No. But you saw all these facilities, you saw the children there?
Yeah, I droned it all. I have drone footage of at the girls' camp specifically.
And this is on one of your documentaries?
Yes.
On the first one?
Yes, they're actually on my Twitter too. If you just go into my highlights on my Twitter, so at Ryan Matta Media, and you scroll down through my highlights, you'll see a lot of the drone footage from all these camps. Wow. There's hundreds around America.
Okay, so then you went to Texas.
Yeah.
You went to all these facilities, and then what happened?
I thought I was coming back with the largest story, right? I'm new. This is like my first story I ever broke, so I'm new to journalism. And I'm thinking I'm coming back with like Nazi Germany. I think America is going to lose their shit.
Concentration camps and everything.
Yes. Because in the way that you phrase that, right? The child migrant concentration camps, when Trump built these facilities originally, it was to separate the parents from the adults, right? And our government can only have custody of a kid under Trump's rules for 72 hours. And now I think it's 30 days. So like once a child comes across the border unaccompanied and our government takes possession of them, the maximum amount of time that they're legally allowed to stay in our government's possession is 30 days. So you have to create, when you separate a child and the adult and it's not the parent, right? Our government can't take care of that child for more than 30 days. So you need a long-term care facility. So that's where these long-term care facilities were originally created. But because they were separating the child from the parent, the left ran this massive marketing campaign calling these places child migrant concentration camps. So I'm not making these words up. We're using the left's terminology, exactly how they define it. So these are child migrant concentration camps, which now you can consider them for-profit child detention camps. So in America, we have the prison industrial complex where they profit off imprisoning Americans, right? But it's never been done with children. Outside of juvie a little bit, but those are normally really bad kids. You're not talking to kids that just, gets a parking ticket.
Not at that scale.
Not at that scale. And now we have, I think right now, I would say if we wanted to go kick in doors today, we could get hands on about 63,000 children that are in these prison camps.
Have you been able to also link
all over
all these facilities with the famous secret flights within the U.S.?
Yes, because one of these facilities you'd asked all along the border. No, there's 29 of them. There's 290 of them stationed all throughout America, but mainly in these highly Democrat-controlled areas.
So, surprise!
Oh yeah, and then our government's paying these NGOs $750 per day per child, and that's not including, right? So think about it like a hotel. You're getting $750 per day per child, but when that child wants food, $600 per day per child. But if that child wants food, there's a separate NGO that delivers the food. There's a separate NGO that does the laundry cleaning. There's a separate NGO that does the medical. There's a separate NGO that does the transportation. So you have one main NGO, and then you have a bunch of these sub-NGOs that are basically under it.
It's a real network of money-making. It's a money-making structure with children.
It's a military-scale operation. It's a military-scale child trafficking operation designed and carried out by our government, and that's undeniable at this point. So you had asked, from there, what happened is I came back and I thought it was going to be the story of Nazi Germany. I thought everybody was going to freak out, and it was crickets. I mean, I got on Redacted. I had brought in Ann Vandersteel and Michael Yon. Ann's an amazing journalist, and then Michael Yon is one of the most well-respected war correspondents in American history. This guy's broke more stories in Afghanistan and Iraq. He would just go get dropped off behind enemy lines and go bunker down with the soldiers in his camera. He's a real badass dude, and I got him involved. Was a new journalist, kind of blow me off. Then I started sending him pictures. He's like, "Where you at?" I'm like, "I'm in Texas." He's like, "I'm in Texas." I know, that's why I'm sending you these pictures. Come down. So he came down. He went and got on Redacted. Like the next week, he got a whole episode of InfoWars. Alex Jones just gave him like 4 hours of the show to talk specifically about what these camps that I droned, and it just didn't do enough. And then I try to have these conversations with normal people, especially the left-wing media, right? I'm telling you that our government's running the largest child trafficking network in the history of the world. Nobody's listening. Nobody. Podcasts don't want to talk to me. They think I'm crazy. I started talking about adrenochroming and organ harvesting, which I don't really talk about anymore because it's so outside the Overton window. I don't need to talk about that to arrest the people that have done this. I can focus just on the crimes that they committed right here with these children. So that's how we kind of spiraled into this documentary, right? I just got sick of just talking and nobody listened. You do a podcast, you do a show, your politicians can kind of weasel their way out of it. Maybe they didn't see that episode, but when you make a documentary, that's engraved in history, right? Forever, for all of eternity, generations to come will learn what our government did to these children.
Wow. Do you think there is an actual will to... So first off, I don't think people understand the level of atrocity that this is. Because it's not only the amount of children, but the simple fact that they are innocent children and they are being bamboozled into jumping into those trucks or those flights or whatever into the U.S. and then getting abused systematically for profit. And it seems like you just said, no one wants to pay attention. Why do you think that is?
Because Because it's so far outside of their Overton window of what they consider to be their known reality in their safe little bubble. And they can never picture themselves doing it to a child, so that you can't understand. If you can't picture what yourself doing it to a child, you can't, when a person gets busted cartel member gets busted at the border with a bunch of drugs, right? When he's at the border with a bunch of drugs and he gets busted, what do you see the next day? You see a big table, all the piles of fentanyl, the cops, the guns, the drugs, that they're all there. All the politicians are there. The photo ops are there. We can see it. When a gang murder happens, and a guy goes through a town and takes an AK-47 and kills all the cartel members in the middle of a movie theater, right? And the news comes in there and you see the blood and the gore, and people are like, oh, okay, they see that, right? When the 7-year-old girl gets rescued after being chained in some dude's basement for 2 years, where she was savagely raped 7 to 10 times a day by whatever animals that guy brought into that house, and then at the end of the night, he raped her, throws her food in the ground, smokes a cigarette, and he puts a cigarette butt out in her arm every night, right? So that way, if she ever escapes, every time she looks down at her arm, she's reminded of how she was savagely raped by this animal. That's how sick these people are, and that's what's happening to these children every single day. And that's just one story out of 1,000 different stories I could tell you about the damage that's done to a 5-year-old girl when a grown man penetrates her and destroys her body. So I know it's uncomfortable to talk about, but it's happening.
So let's go back a little bit. In the Trump days, in his first term, the immigration numbers were low. They were not as high as they are right now.
Almost non-existent.
Biden came, and all of a sudden, like hordes and caravans of immigrants were rushing through all Latin America, Central America, through Mexico to get to the United States. Border encounters are through the roof in the United States, and those are only border encounters that Border Patrol agents get to put into account. So all the people that go through that don't meet a Border Patrol in the border, it could be double the number of border encounters of the actual immigrants going through the United States right now. A lot of them are children. Back in the day, I saw your documentary that in the Trump years, in his first term, all the kids that went through the border had DNA checks to see if their DNA matched the one of the adult that was allegedly his father or her mother, or his or her father, his or her mother, and if it, or if they were related at all. Mm-hmm. So when Biden came, they took the DNA testing out.
Correct.
Why do you think that happened?
So on day one, Joe Biden signs 93 executive orders, 93, completely obliterating every immigration policy that Trump had put into place. The destruction of America, right? If you want,
and those policies were to keep some sort of order and some sort of control of what was coming in.
100%.
Okay. Yeah, and for the protection of the children and the protection of the immigrants.
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. On the last day of years of Trump's office, there was 15,000 children, 15,475 children that showed up at the border without a parent. It's almost nothing. Not one of those children.
Unaccompanied children.
Yes.
15,000.
That's it. Yep.
On his last day in office.
That year, yeah, his last year in office.
2020. Mm-hmm. On 2020, 15,000 children, unaccompanied children, went through the border.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And on 2021?
Yeah, I got the numbers right here on my phone. Let me pull them up for you.
I think I got them.
So in 2020, Trump's year, it was 15,381. 48% of those children were from Guatemala.
How much?
48%.
Wow.
Here's the kicker. So that's 7,353 for your audience. In 2021, Biden's first year in office, 122,731 children came to that border unaccompanied. 47% were from Guatemala. That's 57,683 kidnapped children came from this country and are now sold to a pedophile in America. Those children are gone. Their life expectancy is 24 to 36 months. So those first round of children, 57,000 children, are expiring, roughly about 252 per day. So your audience knows what your government is doing by staying silent is literally executing 252 Guatemalan children, roughly per day. Well, half of that. So 120, right? I was getting the numbers right. 252. You had to be 125, 126 children from Guatemala every day are hitting their expiration date in America.
So it ramped up on the first year of Biden, like
600%.
More than 100,000 more people.
Yeah.
So there is something, I'm going to use a word that the left loves to use it against conservatives. The simple fact that 50% of the kids that came into the U.S. are now about to probably, like you said, expire because of the life expectancy is 24 to 36 months. That sounds like genocide to me, like pre-planned genocide of Guatemalan children.
Yes.
And where are the bodies?
Where are the bodies?
That's, like...
Because
it's
it's not easy to take.
Think about it. Think about it. I mean, from the get-go, and there is something very important about the whole DNA testing. It was officially stopped, or better said, Biden stopped doing the DNA testing as soon as kids were surrendered into U.S. authorities. But then, once they came into the hands of all these different NGOs, they restarted the DNA tests. And specific children with specific DNA markers were the ones being flown out to all these different, or using all these secret flights throughout the U.S. That sounds like something nefarious, like
organ harvesting or something.
Exactly.
The only children that are getting DNA tested, right? When you're interacting with a child that's with a parent, it's very obvious the way that the affection that child shows that parent. Yeah. When there's a child at the border and it's with a trafficker, or it's drugged out of its mind and it can't even open its eyes and it can't hold a conversation because they drugged it right before they got to the border.
I have seen the videos. It's a drugged kid. It's like a towel, It's soft. It doesn't open his eyes. He's asleep, completely asleep.
It's a zombie.
It's a zombie children, yeah.
Yeah, so the ones that you can tell that are the parents, they're routed. And I almost think that this is coordinated at the cartel level because they show up at certain points, right? We have a bunch of the Venezuelans that come to one part of the border. We have a bunch of the Haitians that come to another. There's a bunch of the Chinese are always coming through Jacamba in California.
So everybody has their spot on the border. Asians come through here. Venezuelans come through here. Letting Central Americans come through here because the people migrating from Central America are Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala.
Yes.
So
majority of the time. Not all of them, but yes.
And they always go together.
Pretty much for the most part.
People from South America, they pack together. You have extracontinentals, like we call them extracontinentals because we have coming through Guatemala and through America people from Africa. They
Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshi.
Yeah, we call them extracontinentals here. And they go through Guatemala. And sometimes you can see buses filled with people from Africa, from India, from Pakistan, and from all these little Asian countries or big Asian countries that go through Guatemala. And they have already fake IDs. Mm-hmm. And I saw the fake IDs that were on your documentary. They don't even look like our IDs. They have some. I can show you a Guatemalan ID right now, and the one you show on your documentary, they're completely different.
Someone is printing IDs for them.
They're completely different.
Again, there is a coordination, like you said, like a military level coordination, because all of these people are getting some sort of
15 minutes.
To be here.
I can buy a whole new identity in New York in 15 minutes. I bought one. Right off a Venezuelan right off the streets.
Identification card. Smith John.
Yeah.
You could put John Doe.
Yeah, or whatever you want.
Yeah.
Even
with
Mario.
Mario.
With the hieroglyph and everything there.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So
holy crap.
When Biden came in and there were this bunch of kids, unaccompanied minors going through the border, the Biden administration hired NGOs to do the sorting process of taking care of the kid, housing the kid, feeding the kid, and everything that has to do with the kid.
Because it's illegal for our government to do that.
Because it's illegal for the government. There's not any law that allows U.S. government to hold children for that amount of time.
Or provide any aid or comfort to an illegal immigrant. You can't even come to America if a person...
The government can't, but a government-funded NGO can. So
100%.
It's stupid because the money comes from the taxpayer dollar. So it's exactly the same.
Thing.
It's the same thing, yeah.
With even worse because it doesn't have oversight.
It doesn't have Congress oversight.
Correct.
And it doesn't have, yeah. So it's worse. It's completely worse. So these NGOs that provide aid, in theory, to the children, you said in your documentary that they do the completely opposite of that. Most of them.
Correct. All of them.
What do they do?
Well, if you just read the DOJ's lawsuit, so for your audience that's not familiar in America, the DOJ is like the top cop, right?
Department of Justice.
Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, him, and then you have the FBI, Chris Wray. But we're talking about the DOJ has an open indictment, an active lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs. So if you start reading that, if we went through that right now and I read off all of the crimes, and these are crimes from all of their different locations of employees there that have been charged or are under investigation for crimes that they've committed against these children. Everything from fondling to taking photos to threatening to raping, molesting, fondling. I mean, everything that you can think of is being done to these children inside these facilities outside of maybe organ harvesting, because I assume that they don't do that there. Wow. Or adrenochroming.
The worst part of it all is that it seems that everything was so coordinated that even the investigation into all these allegations were handicapped from the beginning, because what we've heard that DOJ suddenly removed all the investigators they had in their units that investigate child trafficking and and crimes against children, and all these investigators are suddenly used exclusively for political crimes and political persecution.
They pulled Steve Friend off of, he's one of the lead investigators taking child porn cases down in Florida. They pulled him off of working child porn to be like the 15th agent in a squad that was going to go kick in some 80-year-old grandma's door that was taking photos at the Capitol on January 6th. So you're pulling agents that are really literally rescuing and hunting down people that rape children. And you're saying, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to send you as just an extra body to just go serve this warrant to show that we have 15 agents that are going to kick in some dude's door that would have, or some grandma's door that would have literally turned herself in. She was no threat to anybody. You could have sent one agent there and asked her to come with you. She would have went right to the station with you. Instead, you you kick down her door.
Swatting.
With flashbangs at 6 a.m.
You know, it's preposterous that this is happening in the U.S. And I'm going to use the term, and I'm going to say it again. It feels like genocide against Guatemalan children. I mean, by the sheer numbers, the most children that are being pretty much assassinated in the U.S. right now.
11% of your population is being sold for sex, organ harvesting, drugs, or God only knows what else they are using these children for. There's satanic
sacrifices as well.
Absolutely.
So 6% of all children around the world are actually sacrificed in satanic rituals. Mm-hmm. So now let's connect all that stuff. Why do you think that Guatemala is so important then? Not only because of the children that are being obviously sacrificed over there and abused and molested and assassinated. Is there a connection between that and why the Attorney General of Guatemala is being so maligned by U.S. authorities?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind, 100%. Your government is the most corrupt or the biggest cowards. And our government is coming over here and stealing your children, and your government's not doing a gosh damn thing about it. What does that tell you about the people that are in charge of your country?
So let me, it's nuts. It's nuts because we didn't even knew that we had lost that amount of children, of Guatemalan children. Well, maybe you can say that some of those children, unaccompanied minors, they left on their own will or something like that. On their own will, and some of them are already with their families. Some of them, we don't know how much. That's the thing, because for all we know, they're lost. We don't have track of them. We don't know where they are. The United States government doesn't even know where more than 300,000 children are right now. So the NGOs, going back to the NGOs, because we have a problem here with a United States-funded NGO here.
Several NGOs, but the AG's office has already, it's investigating one of them called Save the Children. Save the Children.
100%.
It's like an irony that it's called like that.
It's called doublespeak in Orwellian terms.
I saw in your documentary that the logo of Save the Children appears there. So these NGOs in the United States are supposed to house the children and start a vetting process of the sponsor. That the sponsor that is gonna take the children and house the children outside of the NGO, it's like an honorable. He doesn't have any priors. It's his parent or his relative or something.
Let me correct you on that. So the NGOs are where the children are housed, right? Yeah. When a child comes over, Border Patrol processes them in, right? And that child's coming over with a phone number, a name, and an address on his shirt. Then that number and address go into our system. He's delivered to HHS.
Which system?
Into like, I don't know, government database.
A government database,
yep.
Yeah. HHS is Health and Humane Services.
Correct. So the child goes from Border Patrol to Health and Human Services. Now, Health and Human Services interviews the child, does the national intake screening. After that, the child goes to the NGO. Right now, it's HHS's job to vet that sponsor. So it's actually our own government who's calling to do background checks and make sure that...
So HHS, a government agency, is in charge of vetting the sponsor.
HHS has authorized the delivery of every single child to every single adult.
So how come the United States, it's like the world police officer, you know? They have the best of the best technology. They have access to our government databases because... Mario?
Not all of them.
But the United States government has access to some of our government databases.
Only, I'll tell you this, and this is actually just a comment. It's a fact, but only CPAs, only CPAs actually do share that level of information with the U.S. government. They shouldn't.
They shouldn't share any of it.
I'm going to tell you something.
I mean, I guarantee you, they don't. The U.S. doesn't share back a lot of stuff. They should.
They don't share anything with us. So I'm going to tell you something. I work for the Guatemalan government, some parts of the Guatemalan government, and on every important Guatemalan government agency, like our immigration services, like our national police, and on all of them, there are people that work there that receive an overpay from the United States Embassy in Guatemala. So they are Guatemalan officials
getting a bonus from
the United States Embassy, basically to report to them or something like that. They obviously have some fancy program name to
make it official.
Yeah.
And they call it risk pay.
So the United States knows what are our national documents, IDs look like. 100%. So how can you tell me? This is taken from your documentary. This is alleged Guatemalan document. Eh? This is my ID and this is my driver's license. Do they look alike?
Oh, they're not even close. Not even remotely in the ballpark
I can show
close.
you even my I can show you more national ID. This is my firearms permit, and this is my firearms permit. So I give you 3 official government-issued IDs. My ID, my driver's license, and my weapons carry permit. They don't look even close. This fake ID has information that it's not even on the official documents.
So our employees at HHS, right, the whistleblowers in my film, what they said there was they got a gentleman submitted an ID. So when they have the child, right, the child's in their possession, after they interview the child.
With the phone number, with the tag. It's like a tag.
Yeah, just branded.
This is my child.
Like cattle.
Yeah.
Yep. Like a product on Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's their job to call that number. So HHS calls, says, "Hey Mario, you expecting a child?" And Mario goes, "Yeah," and they go, "Who?" All you have to know is the child's the child's name and the child's birthday, right? Which you printed on his ID, right? You stapled it to his shirt, so of course you know it.
Child ID.
The child ID. So our government calls that guy and says, "Oh, yep, Mario, I'm getting a kid." They go, "Okay, great. We need you to send a copy of your ID." And you go, "Okay." They go, "What kind of IDs do you accept?" Well, they'll give you a list of IDs. So you send in an ID. And she says this guy sends an ID, and she looks at it, and behind the photo, whenever you're at a government office, right, it's always a plain wall or plain behind you. There's not curtains in photos. And she goes, there was literally like curtains in there. It looked like he was looking down at his iPhone, and he took it this way, like not like straight on. It was like he was looking down. There was curtains behind him. She goes, it was obviously fake. So she brought it to the higher ups, to her boss, Adriana Lynch. And she said,
Adriana Lynch is a government official from HHS.
Yes.
Whistleblower.
Yeah, no, she's the bad guy.
Oh, she's the bad guy.
Yep.
She's the bad guy.
Deb was the good one who brought this to her attention. And she was told that basically it's, how do you know that that's a fake ID? And Deb's like, she goes, oh, you're an expert? Oh, did you have training? You don't? No, your job is to verify the sponsor's address, not to investigate the sponsor. So Deb goes, okay. So she knows. So Deb went to the embassy, right? And contacted
The consulate
and
of
contacted
that country.
of that country and contacted them and said, hey, I got this ID.
Is that from your country?
Is this legit? And they said no. So basically, Deb went to her bosses and they said, well, ask him if he has another form of ID. So she calls him and he goes, what's wrong with the ID I just sent you? I just paid $200 for it.
That was said by the alleged sponsor?
It gets worse. Yes, this was said by the sponsor, right? This is how corrupt our system is. So I said that.
I just paid $200 for it?
Yeah, what's wrong with that one?
What?
Yeah.
Self-incrimination.
It's like the sponsor knew he was supposed to get a service.
Right.
And he's like demanding you should take that ID.
Yes.
The sponsor knows that.
Well. That's very well said. That's good.
But the only way I'm telling a government official or someone that has to do something with the government, look, dude, I gave you this ID. I just paid $200 for a fake ID. That's a crime. It's because I know that you're supposed to work with me. I know that you're supposed to be in on the hustle with me.
There is a very important case here in Guatemala. It's a Russian family.
Let me finish this first.
It's nuts.
Okay.
It's nuts.
No, but it gets worse, right? So Deb goes to her boss and tells him that. And there's been enough noise where they can't basically just directly tell her to deliver the kid. So they said, all right, we'll take the case from you. We're going to look into it. So the next day she comes into work.
They just delivered the kid.
She gets called into the office with Adriana Lynch, and she's reprimanded and said, if you ever go above my head and call the embassy again, it'll be basically your last day that you work here. And then the next day she looked into it, and the kid had got authorized for delivery to that sponsor.
The kid got delivered. Of course. Obvious.
Of course.
And the other thing they have to vet is the address where the child is supposed to be delivered, right?
Correct.
Where have these children been delivered?
So if you...
That it's suspicious, because if it's a house, well, it's a house, but we're suspicious places that are known for these children to be delivered to.
So we had whistleblower that came forward with some internal documents of these addresses of where these kids are supposed to be delivered to. They started looking into them. They had a list of 8,000. I think in the first couple hundred, they uncovered 4 strip clubs. So the employees at HHS that are vetting these sponsors looked at that address, and they did this using Google Earth, right? So like you mentioned earlier, we have the most advanced technology in the world. We have the FBI database. We have Interpol. We are not searching or vetting these sponsors in Guatemala because the majority of these people that are getting these children are illegal immigrants who just came into America. They don't even have USA documents. They're giving us, one of them was an expired Guatemala birth certificate that expired 2 years ago. 2 years ago, no photo on it.
Well, birth certificates don't expire, but they go out of they get actualized that different security measures go through them nowadays. So now you have a QR code in order to make it legit and everything. But yeah, and now our birth certificates have pictures of the parents. So my birth certificate from Guatemala, or my child's, I have a 2-year-old, it has the picture, my picture in it, and the picture of my mother, of his mother, my wife.
So here's the worst part of it all. There is no way the U.S. can claim, we don't have access to their database. It's total bullshit because we know for a fact that this specific, the National ID Office in Guatemala has a direct connection and connectivity into several agencies at the U.S. Embassy.
And we work together. We have different programs in which we share information, we share capabilities, we share everything. People from the United States come here to train our government officials. So we have communication with the Guatemalan agencies that could verify those documents. So if the United States government wanted to prevent this child to be delivered to a strip club, it could be prevented
instantly.
But the funny thing is,
they don't want to.
The funny thing is that I pick it up from the documentary. More than 300 children were delivered to Audrey's. That's the name of the strip club, I think.
It's Andy's Reception Hall. It's actually
Andy's.
One is not a strip club. This is an actual reception hall where people get married at. But it's like you look at this place and you're like, you'd have to be pretty hard up on your luck to get married. I'd rather get married in my backyard. Andy's Reception Hall.
Here it goes. Andes.
It looks like, so for your audience that's never been there, but you go to a bad neighborhood in America with like a abandoned bowling alley, or a bowling alley that's in like the worst neighborhood, and it's got boarded up windows. It's like you wouldn't even leave your kids there at a birthday party without your supervision. And our government, so that building right there connects to it. So there's a house, and then if you had like a gazebo walkway that went to like another little building here, to that, from that gazebo walkway to that building, and there's shipping containers with addresses, shipping containers. And then behind that, there's an apartment complex.
Gatehouse Apartments.
Gatehouse Apartments, which has 50 units.
In Houston, Texas. Yeah, 50 units.
When Deborah first blew the whistle, it was like 189 kids had been there. And then they said they were looking into it. In the time that they were looking into it, because it's not just Pomona Fairgrounds that was delivering children to these addresses, we have these intake centers that HHS runs all across America. So even though Deborah's intake facility was investigating,
Pomona?
That
was California.
Here's the whole thing.
But hold on, let me finish this, because we had taken 300 children, 329 children or something like that one address. And then Deb said she got fired, right, or left, and she talked to people on the inside that said that now that number's up to 500 something.
To this apartment complex?
Yes.
With just 50 units.
Just 50
So they have to pack 10 children per unit.
If there's over 500, yes, 100%.
And not all the units are the same sizes.
Here's the thing. If someone wanted to investigate this with all the amount of information that there is out in public, and I know this because I worked there at the Houston Emergency Center, the HEC Center. It's on Shepherd Drive, very close to 610. Every single camera in Houston and Harris County goes into that HEC Center. Every camera on the street goes in there. That means they could actually investigate all that activity in those apartment complexes and find out who, when, and where this was happening. And I can almost guarantee you that when they start doing it, a lot of these different cities, emergency centers, are going to have glitches that the camera material and the video material is going to disappear.
How long are they backed up for, do you know?
If I remember correctly, at least HEC Center in Houston is, I think it's at least a year.
So we need to be putting pressure on our government to immediately, like the Trump administration should be demanding.
In my opinion, the moment whoever ends up leading the FBI and DOJ should put every single law enforcement agency in the United States
to hold on
to every single data source they have. All their drives, all their video sources, they have to protect them.
So going again
and put a name on that. If you are in charge of that, it's your responsibility. Yeah. If that gets lost, you're going to get charged with, I don't know, obstruction of justice, at least.
Destroying evidence.
Let's go again to HHS, because it seems to me it's the most corrupt, inhumane. It's supposed to be humane,
genocidal.
Human services, but it's the most inhumane U.S. agency of all.
Xavier Becerra.
You know MS-13, right?
Yeah.
That's a gang.
Yes.
From El Salvador.
Yes.
We have them here. We have two gangs here. We have Barrio 18 and we have Mara Salvatrucha, that's MS-13. So they are both very cruel. They are very
savage.
Savage, yeah. But the most savage, the MS-13 is the most savage of all. Like they're
more than Tren de Agua.
Sorry?
More than Tren de Agua.
Perhaps
they are more. They're more ruthless and less trained because they are just it's pure human savagery.
Yeah, but they are savages.
Tren de Agua they're trained paramilitary people.
They eat the heart of corpses. They decapitate people. They're savages, complete savages. So we have the crazy Barrio 18 and we have the savages of MS-13. So I was seeing here that there's a news report that says HHS sent unaccompanied minors to sponsors with MS-13 ties, potential trafficking rings. So HHS services delivered children to a gang, basically.
To somebody on the international terrorist watch list. So we have people on the terrorist watch list. They can only hold 10,000 in America, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So what Aaron blew the whistle on was that we had people multiple different times. So in Aaron's like 8 or 12 years in DHS's history, he never saw one person on this watch list apply to sponsor a UAC. In 2021 is the first year of Biden's administration. He's seen 4. And it wasn't all MS-13. It was MS-13. It was the Chinese gang. It was a gang from Iraq. And it was 4 different gangs. And he says like, if the Chinese created a new batch of fentanyl, right, they wouldn't share that recipe with everybody, right? They would keep that monopoly because there's so much money to be made there in the first year of that operation before it basically gets known to the world. Well, you're talking about one gang figuring this out, and then all of a sudden 4 different gangs in 4 different countries that operate completely independently of each other have all figured this same thing out. No, he goes, there's just so much money, and there's this never-ending supply of children that no gang cares. They can all share in on the riches and exploit the same exploitation.
So for the audience to know,
So we're financing our own enemies inside the United States, besides killing a lot of children.
Right. And then you start to think about this. It's like who is the cartel? The United States government is the cartel. Who's running this? This isn't like it happened. This is a military operation, and it's such a well fine-tuned oiled machine that it's firing on all cylinders. How do you move 200,000 children from Guatemala into America? And like you said, that's what we know about. And if that's what we know about, in normal migration, you can double, if not triple that, guaranteed. So for every immigrant that came across legally, double that.
So we have our Amber Alert, right? Here is called Alerta Alba Kenneth Alert. Just from today, the day hasn't ended, we have 15 missing children. Just today, in Guatemala, we have 15 different alerts, and you can see this is a baby. This is a baby, 3-year-old. 3-year-old. The day hasn't ended, and we have 15 alerts today in Guatemala, and we can count the ones from yesterday, and it's every day, all day, like this. Some of them turn up dead here in Guatemala because we have a lot of violence here, but some of them never show up again, and they are maybe the States.
There's the second that child crosses that border into America and is delivered to a buyer, there's less than a 1% chance that you'll ever see that child alive again. And every day, again, our government's delivering 252 of these children on average to buyers in America.
Every day.
Every day.
So,
and that's based on the amount we've lost.
So the reason you're calling them buyers, because it's basically, you can call them anything else but that, because you have an unaccompanied minor that goes through the border. He has on his shirt or written on his wrist or something a name and a phone number.
And an address.
And an address. So someone calls to this address and to this phone number, and we don't even know, and you don't even know, and the government of the United States doesn't know if that adult on the other side of the line of the telephone is his father, mother, uncle, aunt, brother, grandpa, grandma. We don't know if they're connected. Correct. Because we don't have DNA testing.
Correct.
And then we have more than 300 children or hundreds of children being delivered to strip clubs, I don't know what, Andy's reception hall, apartment complexes that cannot pack 500 children.
Even abandoned facilities as well.
It's documented, and it's a fact, that some children have been delivered to trafficking rings of MS-13 and other gangs. So it's obvious that it's some kind of child trafficking. And to shed some light into it, the human trafficking, it's the biggest growing criminal enterprise in the world right now. Absolutely. It has surpassed drug trafficking.
And the fastest.
It's the fastest, yeah. It makes more money than drug trafficking. So now you have a big criminal enterprise like the cartels in Mexico also running the next big thing, that's child trafficking and human trafficking. There's a movie called Sound of Freedom. You have seen it?
Yeah, Tim's actually in my documentary.
The Impaler, yeah, I saw him. So in Sound of Freedom, they say something that really impacted me. You can sell a brick of cocaine one time, but you can sell a child 3 or 4 or 5 times a day.
Try 20, 30, 40 times some of these girls.
So where do you think this needs... Well, we've talked about the U.S. enough. Let's talk about Guatemala. Why are you here?
I'm here because you guys just showed me right there. I was in a podcast. I wasn't going to come down here till January. And then I was in a podcast and a couple of your citizens showed up and begged me to come. They told me that there's 20 children, 20 Amber Alerts. That doesn't even happen in America. Ever. I can't tell you the last time I heard an Amber Alert in America.
It doesn't.
They're there. They're supposed to be there, but I don't get them on my phone very often.
Wow.
So when you tell me you're getting 20 in one day,
yeah,
I mean
15,
that's beyond that's beyond like an epidemic. It is a crisis at a scale that we've never seen before in world history.
And that's the ones that get reported. Bingo. Because some children are being sold, and it's known for a fact. We are a poor country. The people,
their own families sell.
Yeah, their own families sell their children.
Right.
It's a fact all through Latin America, and I don't know. Maybe some poor countries of Asia and Africa do that.
All over, yeah.
It's documented,
Correct.
So it's funny because the Attorney General's office this year started an investigation against that U.S. NGO called Save the Children, and the left went nuts here in Guatemala. So they went crazy. They criticized the investigation, and it's just an investigation. Why all the fuss about it? It's just our Attorney General's office that has all the right, and its purpose is to investigate things and get to the bottom of it and know the truth behind something. They're not accusing anyone yet. They haven't made any arrests. They just went into the offices to gather information, to make some questions. Not big fuss, but the left went nuts here. All over. When you see the Sound of Freedom movie, who were the biggest critics? The left. The progressive left, usually, because there's a conservative left that seems more like our to the right now in the world. So when you see some of these cases, the left always goes nuts about it. Why do you think it's that?
I think because most of those are crisis actors, right? You have these NGOs that operate here that have a full-time staff of crisis actors. So when they need a rally, they can pull together 50 people. When they want outrage, they got outrage. Are they really citizens? Are they locals? Or are they working for a company, right? These NGOs, once an NGO opens up, I tell everybody in America, the second you allow an NGO to open up in your town and operate in your town's done. They're going to take over your city council. They're going to take over the local mayor office. They're going to take over the sheriff's department. There is so much money involved here. And you come to a country like Guatemala, where I don't know what your day rate is of pay here. I heard $1.50. What is the average?
$500 a month.
$500 a month. Okay.
$500 a month. Yeah.
Yeah. So these NGOs are getting $750 per day per kid. So when you're talking about that much money at stake and unlimited backing by our government, by the State Department, by the CIA, and all of them are involved, it's power, right? It's corruption at a scale that I don't think that citizens in I don't want to say this is a third world country, but like
it is.
It is? Okay, so in a third world country, I don't think your citizens are understanding the level of control that like our CIA, our State Department, and these NGOs that are literally money laundering arms and front organizations for all of this. Just look at the governments that we've overthrown, right? Look at the amount of times that U.S. aid has been involved in regime changes. I think Mike Benz documents the most. Watch Mike Benz Cyber.
You have done it here.
They've done it here. You guys just had a recollection.
We've lived it.
And how much money have we funneled into U.S. aid? I'll have those numbers for you tomorrow. I got it coming. And
interesting.
If I live long enough to...
It would be interesting to find out how much of that money has been dispersed in cash here in Guatemala.
100%.
Because that's the real...
and then funneled right back into your political campaigns, your political parties. They control your media.
Or you rent a riot, right?
Yeah. Rent a riot and you buy out the media, right? It's not hard to buy out the media, take over the media.
You have the U.S. You have the U.S. ambassador and some people from the United States State Department come to Guatemala and visit. He's a media owner. He's
he's a media mogul, what you would consider.
The owner of a media outlet called El Periódico was caught and is in prison because now he's free, but he was in prison because he laundered money. He had 300,000 quetzales. That's about how much? $30,000?
$40,000.
$40,000 that he didn't knew how to account for. So he made all different stories. Here in Guatemala, if you can't account for more than $10,000, it's considered money laundering. So he had more than 40, and he didn't knew how to account for that money.
But not only that, he was caught on wiretaps and video.
Yeah, it's in video. And it's
peddling influence in favor of different criminals.
And it's money in cash, because he was extorting a businessman. So he was caught. He went to prison. He's still pending trial because his previous trial he got a retrial. But you have U.S. government officials going to visit him
in jail.
And now and if you dig a little deeper, his media outlet, El Periódico, gets George Soros money. Open Society Foundations funds that media outlet. So some people call us that we run conspiracy theories and all about that, but if you follow the money and if you look to the different actors, it all comes back to the same place.
For your audience, the CIA, right, our government created the term conspiracy theory, right? And then they've ran this psyop over the last, 40 or 50 years, brainwashing us into believing that these, crazy stories are conspiracy theories, and every gosh damn one has came out to be true.
And we go
Most
back
of them,
again,
yeah.
and we go back into Orwellian speak. That's double speak right there, because actually every single conspiracy, you theorize about it to analyze it and find out where it comes from, and then from that theory you develop an actual investigation. So they hide all these, like Save the Children. It's the same as conspiracy theory. They hide their evil intentions behind good words.
The Patriot Act.
How deep do you want
like
to
the
go into
Patriot
this?
Act.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like the Patriot Act. Yeah. How deep do you want to go into this, or will you go into this?
Let's go all the way.
You're going all the way. So we were talking earlier that this doesn't start here. We worry about our Guatemalan children, but there's children of all around the world that are going through our country, because we are like the closest thing to the United States besides Mexico, and it's easier to come inside Guatemala and then go through Mexico and get to the United States. So we have children from all around the world.
180 different nations.
That are being trafficked.
Yes, into America.
Well, I told you.
That means there is a problem of consumption of
That's
children
big time.
in the U.S. So the real problem
big
is, you have supply and demand. If we put it in cold facts, if there is a demand, there is a supply. Same thing with cocaine. Which is the biggest snorting country in the world?
America.
The United States. And cocaine has disappeared from the media narrative for the past 4 years.
Yeah, after it was found in the White House, kind of vanished, huh?
Well, that's a good point, right? Good Colombian cocaine, probably brought by their own Minister of Defense.
It probably came with a Guatemalan child.
Yeah,
probably was the Minister of Defense that left it behind for Hunter.
But
the Colombian Minister of Defense.
Everybody's getting pardoned there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do anything, commit any crime, and if you're the president's son,
You
you
can
get
smoke
pardoned.
crack with a 13-year-old child and get it photographed. And
It's nuts.
So what do you think? I mean, people don't want to understand that there is an actual purpose, a very nefarious purpose behind demonizing the Guatemalan AG, because she's investigating all these crimes against our children. What would you say to the Guatemalans that they need to, what do they need to see and understand that this is way beyond their little lefty whims and
I would say that
thoughts?
if you think your country is bad now and you think you have it hard now, if this president is able to remove that attorney general, your country's gone. This place will transcend into the next Venezuela. There will be revolutions. There will be bloodshed. The last hope you have at saving your country sounds to be that attorney general. And that's why I'm here today. I'm going to do everything I can to help your audience and the people from Guatemala understand the damage that's being done to these children.
How about the people in the United States and the new government coming in?
That they're going to be your best ally. They should be. Right? And if they don't, we're going to burn it to the ground, right? It's just, these children, you don't get to sell children. You don't get to turn a blind eye and look the other way. You're allowing 12-year-old children to get raped and sold in your country. You have a problem.
Yeah.
And hopefully the CIA under Trump is the good CIA and is the guys that come in and overthrow your government.
Hopefully.
By force. One way or another, right? We need to clean this shit up. I know you guys aren't advocating for that, but I'm saying.
I'm advocating for we have a good CIA, because the CIA runs a whole bunch of ops here in Guatemala, in Mexico. Well, they used to run good ops. Right now, we don't know. Basically,
they're rogue.
They're definitely being.
Well, something in their favor, I'll tell you, because we can attest to that, is that the agency actually run the most successful 4-year counter-narcotics operations here in Guatemala. We broke the world record of cocaine seizures year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the CIA. That wasn't State Department INLs. That wasn't DOD. It was the good work these guys were doing because they actually get to work with their good partners in country. Yep. How about and they have a very small budget compared to the billions of dollars that INL, FBI, and DEA get for foreign operations. Where's that money? NGOs, probably.
100%.
And their little network of how they call them, preferred partners.
Yeah.
That's what they call them.
It's a big boys club.
Actually a money laundering scheme to bring back money to the U.S. for political campaigns.
100%.
Do you know?
Destabilize nations, right? The destruction of America starts and stops at our border, right? That's what this has all been about. To completely collapse civilization, get rid of the Constitution, like you said when we were talking earlier. After the United States falls, there's nowhere else to run. So if they can take down the United States, this globalist cabal can really then just put their boot on their throat to the rest of the world and take all the power they want. So
the elite.
The only way to collapse America, especially in a 4-year period, if you're trying to do it quick like Biden was to completely fundamentally transform it by just opening your borders. 100%. So where there's so much crime and chaos in cities, businesses are going bankrupt. You want to get rid of the middle class, right? Because when you have the rich, elite, and then you have 99% are poor, right? It's very easy to control people when they're that poor and they're that broke.
And you just have to feed them.
Right. So that's how the reason that these kids are vanishing and they're moving so many kids, because in the very beginning, when the Biden administration signed those 93 executive orders, and you're talking about the massive hordes of caravans, because our government can't provide aid or comfort to an illegal immigrant, and we can't, basically house and take care of a migrant child, you have to create NGOs. So we didn't have the NGO structure in there at first. That's why in my documentary, I talk about MVM Inc. MVM Inc. is now one of the #1 transporters of these children. And this was a military contractor over in Iraq that was doing jobs for the CIA and the DOD in Afghanistan and Iraq. And that's the NGO you choose to now is going to take care of migrant children. Are you kidding me?
How much money has it gone to these NGOs?
Oh, billions. It just Southwest Key Programs has received
3 billions.
Yeah, it's like 3.1 billion now. We were looking at it yesterday.
Yeah, I was.
But during my documentary, it's 2.89 billion.
And the strange thing is that usually people here in Guatemala think that Republicans are the good. Well, conservatives in Guatemala think Republicans are the good guys, Democrats are the bad guys, or basically evil. But it's a uniparty thing going on in the United States for the funding of these NGOs.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the Republicans are just as rotten to the core. The first thing that Trump should
Neocons or what?
Both. So you guys didn't get to see my first documentary. For your audience that is asking, like, how is this happening, right? And the big thesis of my documentary, the first one, because we went into the organ harvesting, we went into the damage that's being done to these children, we went into the NGOs a little bit, but we went into the big picture. But mainly the focus was how. Why is this happening? We have the highest up military intelligence in America. This guy was right under Trump, telling you that we have members of our government, Congress, that they have actionable intel that members from our government are traveling overseas to rape minor children. And I believe he uses the word sex, but you don't have sex with a child. General Flynn.
Flynn said this.
Flynn said this actually in that documentary too. You probably didn't catch it as quick in there because
actually,
I didn't break it down.
There is a U.S. senator who has been actually named several times for taking that type of trips, and he has actually the hots for Guatemala, by the way.
So you have actual intel. The United States government has actual intel on members of Congress.
Yep.
That go overseas.
Yep.
To go into.
To have sex with minors.
To rape minors.
To rape minors. So there's a diplomatic. A diplomat from the United States that served here in Guatemala that's alleged had a relationship with a minor here. He's again in the State Department. He was a diplomat here in Guatemala, and now he's in the State Department. And he allegedly raped some minors here in Guatemala.
I'm going to scroll through my profile here for 2 seconds because a girl named Destiny did this amazing article on all of the politicians over the last 5 years that have been arrested for raping children, molesting children, torturing children. It will blow your mind the amount of politicians in America that have been charged So all of these ambassadors, in my personal opinion, anybody that's an ambassador to any country, like Guatemala, where they're going to have unvetted access to these children. They must be. They should be. There should be like the part of the problem is our policies, right? The cops have to wear body cams. Firefighters body cams. Doctors sometimes are even wearing body cams, but yet our members of Congress aren't wearing body cams. Why is that? Why aren't all of these people that work for us? Because in America, there are public servants. Like they don't get to ask us, right? We tell them what the hell they're going to do.
In theory.
And they've lost that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think that Trump's going to start to restore is giving that power back to the people. We've strayed so far away, and these agencies have gotten so big. If Trump didn't win this election, there was no coming back from
Hopefully.
it.
Yeah, no.
Totally.
I'm clear about that. I think everybody is right about now. I'm going to tell you another facts for you to take home and to go around them. So another NGO that you mentioned in your documentary is Oxfam. Correct?
Say that one more time.
Oxfam. The name is Oxfam. It's on your documentary. So Oxfam has been allegedly being involved in human trafficking. Here in Guatemala, the political ruling party right now is called Movimiento Semilla. Its founder, Juan Alberto Fuentes Knight, ran Oxfam here in Guatemala a couple of years ago. So you have, and right now the ruling party that you have in Guatemala, as you said, we have some trouble with the election process, the last election process, and the United States went above and beyond in the name of preserving and protecting our democracy to protect this political party. So I'm telling you, above and beyond, they went all into assuring that the ruling party that we have right now got into power on January. So there was an election. There was a lot of fuss around it. Some allegations being made, but it was our problem, as Guatemala. But you had the United States government through its State Department went above and beyond. They took out more than 300 or 400 visas. They sanctioned people because they were making sure that this political party went into power. And its founder, it's Juan Alberto Fuentes Knight. He ran Oxfam here in Guatemala. And this is another NGO that's mentioned on your documentary. So once again, it's all connected.
Most likely he was handpicked because they probably know that he rapes children. If I just had to take a guess from what you told me, you don't get into a position of a 3-letter agency in America. You don't get handpicked by this corrupt regime unless they 100% own you. And they have to have some dirt on you that's so damning that you're going to swallow a bullet before you admit to whatever it is that they have on you. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Of course, basically, we call it here in Spanish, we say, te tienen machucada la cola. They have you by the tail, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Because they have somehow involved themselves in all these crimes that are so heinous that they have to remain hidden. Mm-hmm. And if they come out, it's the end of their life in all ways because their reputation is tarnished forever. But still, think about it. I think there is a reason why all this globalist cabal is actually pushing for the normalization of pedophilia.
Bingo.
And there is so many shots on CNN, and you can easily find them online, where you find all these riots, rented riots for sure, where all these
rented
crazy
riots,
all these hyenas with weird colored hair. It's just like, pedophilia is a choice, or it's a
right of the child.
It's a right of something.
Right of the child.
Not only that, they're trying to make it as if all these animals that deserve nothing but very painful deaths, it's actually just a choice, and it's not a choice, but it's just a preference. It's just like, being gay.
Or
that's what they are trying to paint it like.
100%.
And it's nothing but normalization of crime. And the most heinous crime, in my opinion. So what do we see in the future for Ryan Matta when it comes to fighting these animals?
I hope that we get the death penalty in America implemented in all 50 states. I think that's first and foremost.
For pedos.
For pedophiles, yes. If you are over the age of 21, right? I'm not trying to jam up an 18-year-old that has sex with a 16-year-old, right? Yeah. You're in the college, high school range.
She's your girlfriend.
Whatever, I get it, right?
Yeah.
But you get over 21, you have to start thinking like an adult, right? So if she's 17 and you're over 21, get your shit together, right? Like, maybe that person doesn't deserve to die, but I mean, maybe there's a scale of it. But we should have the death penalty.
No, but it's obviously like a 40-year-old having sex with a 11, 12, 13,
Bingo.
8-year-old. It's like it's common sense. It's common sense, You
mean what NGOs have pushed for normalization in indigenous population because it's their cosmovision that very old men are allowed to marry very young girls?
So,
come on.
Yeah,
it's normalizing these type of things using native populations in other worlds that then are going to be imported into first world nations.
And we have to accept it.
Yeah, if you go through the amount of money that comes through Guatemala in the concept of aid through NGOs and through USAID, and it goes to Guatemalan NGOs because what it's done is you have some U.S.-run NGOs here in Guatemala, U.S.-run NGOs in Guatemala like Save the Children, Catholic Relief Services, Caritas, and some other. And then you have money that comes through USAID, and that money goes to Guatemalan NGOs. And the programs that they run in our country are nuts. They are woke programs, teaching our indigenous people about new masculinities, teaching our indigenous people about gender, teaching our indigenous people about stupid things, or funding indigenous groups for them to
riot. Protest?
Yeah, for them to riot and for them to
radicalize.
Yeah, but they want to have a new constitution being made in which they have their own territories, and in those territories they can uphold their own law, like their indigenous law. So it's okay in that terms. It's okay for raping. Basically they go back to being a little bit of savages, because if you are caught stealing something, you get something.
The last time that the U.S. got involved into allowing the sovereign territory of a country to be split, and that a specific portion of land needs to be given, even with authority to indigenous groups, was in Colombia. And guess what? The largest cocaine production facilities are in that specific region in Colombia.
Yeah, I think they want here human production facilities in Guatemala.
Probably.
So we know that pedophilia is the number one tool for blackmail, right? We've seen that start in, basically in the 1920s when Hoover created the FBI, right? Mm-hmm. I forget, it was the Bureau of Investigations. Now it's the FBI. But back in those days, right, being gay was so taboo that it was enough for you to basically swallow a bullet. So all the way up basically to the 50s, Hoover used to throw these lavish raves at basically this place called, I think it was the Blue Oyster, but don't quote me on the name of it. But he had this club and he bugged it. Every room, everywhere you could go in this place was bugged. Hoover would throw these really lavish parties with like transgender people back in the day, cross-dressers, gays, and it was this free-for-all with drugs and prostitutes and celebrities and politicians. And Hoover was filming everything. So he remained the director of the FBI for 50 years for a reason, because everybody was so terrified of Hoover, right? And there are several presidents that came into office that won the election basically without having the backing of Hoover. So they didn't like him from the time that they got into office. And it wasn't more than like a few weeks. And basically they were best friends because Hoover had the dirt on them already. Or I forget what president it was that created the CIA. Our CIA was created because the president wanted a government body
counterpart to
that
the
had
FBI.
So much power so that's how the CIA was originally created. So then you get to a point where you have politicians that are gay. They're being blackmailed by this guy in the FBI. They don't like that. How do you get around that? Well, if it's something to do with gay, you normalize it, right? Because then you make it so normal, it's not taboo. Then there's no longer dirt over your head. So what we're seeing with pedophilia is the same way. Pedophilia is the last taboo. That is the last thing that's so crazy and so messed up that you will swallow
That's
a
a
bullet.
way to see it, yeah.
And then that's why I say with these NGOs, you have an NGO like Save the Children, right? Whether you're doing good at first or you just have access to children. If I'm the State Department, I want to overthrow a government, right? I need to start with blackmailing people. I need to start doing that with pedophilia. It's the most powerful, right? So if I have a NGO like Save the Children that's corrupt, and I can go pick a child out of there, right? And I can use that child to blackmail these politicians. It's like you have a constant supply of children. You don't have to keep them in a stash house. You don't have to do any business with a trafficker. You have a legit organization that operates right out in the open. And then now you have this child trafficking organization that you can also use to blackmail politicians. I would assume there's some connection here between these organizations outside of just taking the children, because it seems like they don't need to Save the Children to get all these children to America.
Yeah, it seems logical.
And they got raided for trafficking children, but has anybody looked into where those children specifically going from Save the Children? Were they getting put into the caravans and trafficked here this way? Were they getting flown directly out with Save the Children buying them plane tickets? Where were those plane tickets going, right? Like, I would love to dig into to Save the Children and find out how that operation was running, because I bet if you look at it, it's probably similar. And I bet you everywhere we've overthrown a government, there was probably a Save the Children in that.
This is, and to start closing, this is an industry that has a lot of loose strings. I think it's going to be a matter of President Trump allowing the good people to start pulling those strings, and you will see a lot of these players in these horrible industry to start turning against each other.
Oh, yes.
I can guarantee you almost that if President Trump starts persecuting all these human trafficking rings and groups, you will see a lot of very famous, very powerful people suddenly swallowing one too many pills, or having scuba diving in their own pool and their own restrooms. They won't be able to take that pressure. And I think it needs to happen. And every single person that participates in any way in this type of stuff needs to be made famous. I, for one, as part of the things that I do in the United States with Project Dynamo, that's one of our goals, to really, all the rings that we discover, we will make their participants world famous, because it's the best way to protect children from them.
100%.
Yeah. So, Ryan, thank you for doing what you're doing. Since I saw your documentary, I got very angry and angry even at myself, because if you know some history of Guatemala, we have a history of selling children. We had a presidential candidate on the last two runs that was accused of aiding and abetting the sale of children in Guatemala to American families and European families. There's a
he
lady
also covered up the investigation of the UN peacekeepers
in Haiti, in Haiti, yeah,
in
Haiti.
Africa as well.
Yeah, in Africa as well. And he recently was on a peacekeeping mission in Africa again, contracted by the UN. So there's a girl that wrote a book it is called "Mom, I Am Not Dead," and it's about a girl that got sold to, I think, a French family, right? She's doing amazing. Don't get me wrong. She's probably has a better life right now that she would if she had stayed in Guatemala. But that's not the point. The point is that she was sold in the 80s to a French family or an European family, and this presidential candidate was involved. She wrote a book, and she came back and she told her story. So we know that we have sold children as a country. We know that's going on here, and we Guatemalans don't do anything about that because we don't
want to believe it's happening.
Well, I don't know if we don't want to believe it, but nobody is talking about it. We don't have the media going into it. We don't have our government authorities going into it until right now that they're investigating Save the Children. But that's what you just came here and told us today. That's still going on. Our Guatemalan children are still being sold outside of Guatemala, and it has to stop, and we have to get accountability to the people that are doing it. We need to start doing something. So, Ryan, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for putting some light into it, and thank you for fighting for the children of God.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys for having me. It's an honor to be here, and hopefully I'll be back again.
Something you said, and to all these bad people, pedos and everything, we're coming for you guys.
we will come for you. No, and
there won't be a place you can hide.
Every time you get here in Guatemala, count with us for anything you need.
God bless you guys.
Awesome, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jóvenes, gracias por haber estado con nosotros. De nuevo, si se grabaron de la Landívar y absorbieron el conocimiento como el chinito del libro, vos ese que se lo hacía así. Por lo menos los de leyes, de plano, si son. Pónganle subtítulos en las diferentes plataformas. Gracias y nos vemos muy pronto.